it right now. So you guys actually can have, we'll have the recording of the webinar at the end of it. Actually, we're going to share it in our platform, Edugo.AI, so the one you sign up. And so you guys are going to be able to watch again this webinar. Okay, so my background, just a little bit, why I'm qualified to talk about this topic. First of all, I'm the CEO and founder of Edugo.AI. I started 4 years ago building AI technology to be applied for language education. And also I am the co-founder of Euro-China Federation for Artificial Intelligence, where we actually collect all the AI expert leaders in Europe that would like to, do business or do academic collaborations here in China. So my main skill, I'll say, is the one that to link the academic world with actually the real products that are easy to use and that solve problems for a school manager, teachers, and also students. So our company has been awarded in the AI space. Most recently, last week, actually, during the World AI Conference, which is the biggest AI conference in the world, we've been awarded as the best European startup in the AI space. And also we've been awarded in 2019 as the best Italian startup in the AI space within the governmental program between China and Italy. And so I accumulated some experience in this space, especially in the intersection that between AI and language education. So today I'm going to share some of these knowledge that I accumulated. Moreover, we're going to explore some of the new technologies that are coming out, and actually how those new technologies can be applied in the technology for learning languages. So let's move on. I would like to just give you a historical overview or when actually AI and NLP was born. And I like to, this is one of my favorite papers. It was written by Alan Turing. Alan Turing, as you may have watched the movie, was a super popular movie, The Imitation Game, is actually one of the founder of the computer. So what they created the Turing machine. And there is actually this really interesting paper, what he was talking about the imitation game. The imitation game is actually, it was trying to figure out if machine can think. And machines can think. It was actually created this experiment where to prove if a machine can really think like a human, it was actually that a human talking to a machine is not able to recognize if actually is talking to a machine or is talking to a human. So this imitation game is based on language. And I think fast forward now more than 70 years from when he created this imitation game test, I believe that now we are on a point that machine can really start to, simulate a human conversation. And I'm really excited today because we're going to show you one proof that now we're really close in actually passing the Turing test, because I created a little chatbot that is simulating an English teacher. And so we're going to see actually how AI can actually simulate how a real teacher will will behave in a lesson. So let's start with a simple definition. What is NLP? NLP stands for Natural Language Processing, which means that it's an automatic manipulation, classification, and production of natural language, like speech, in the format of speech or text. This is made by software. And so it's actually the intersection of two really interesting fields. One is computer science and the other one is linguistics. So it's usually called like computational linguistics. And of course, the AI and machine learning play a really fundamental role in linking those two branch knowledge. So can I ask you guys to give me some example of NLP or some products that actually use NLP, because there are many products nowadays that use NLP. Do you guys have any ideas of some product? You can drop a message in the chat room. Okay, Hilary is saying Alexa, Siri, perfect. Those are really good examples. Actually, they use one part of NLP, which is called also natural language understanding. Or NLU. So Alexa, Siri, like try to understand what are the intent of people, right? So if you ask to Alexa, what is the weather today? How is the weather today? Alexa is able to understand what is your intent and then is able to reply to you. So that's a really good example. Google Translate, Another really useful example, I think we use it every day, translation services are the ones that actually use NLP. Customer service bots, exactly, that's another of those services that they use actually like natural language understanding. And so we have language bot. Then either is saying text generation, sentiment analysis. Wow, so this is actually more technical. We were going to jump in on more of these like text generation, sentiment analysis, also other tasks that are linked to NLP. So here I put like a list of what you can do with NLP. So it's a really broad field. So there are many different tasks you can do with this technology. So for example, we have part-of-speech tagging, as you can see on the right. So NLP can actually take a sentence and then actually analyzing what is a noun, what is a verb, what is the pronouns, and do actually like analysis of the part-of-speech. Can do also like name entity recognition. For example, can analyze if there is is a person name, is an organization, is a location. Can do also question answering. So you can give a piece of text and some questions, and the system will be able to answer to the questions. Can do speech recognition. This is really useful also for language learning, is analyzing what is the pronunciation of students, and is actually one of the most useful application of NLP for language education. Can also text to speech or speech to text. So can transform text into speech, what's called speech synthesis, or also can do speech to text when actually like you speak and then there is text appearing. And there are many other tasks that NLP can perform, and many of them you mentioned in the chat room. So I'm really happy you guys have a good understanding about this technology. So let's. I like this meme just to make you understand a little bit how like the NLP evolved over the years. So before actually we have what's called a rule-based systems. So basically all this NLP technology was based on like linguists that were encoding all this kind of like language or rule about the language in software. And actually Noam Chomsky was the biggest, supporter. So he created actually a lot of this literature about how you can encode language rules, and then actually like computational linguists encoded that in software. But from the 80s, really starting in the 80s, but really got more and more prominent lately, we are actually using more statistical models. Statistical models means that we are not actually encoding the rules of the language, but we're using data in order to actually perform those NLP tasks. So I have here a really clear example, I believe, about the change between actually the rule-based system to statistical models. So here on the left, you have a rule-based system for a spell checker. So basically, if you want to create a spell checker with rule-based, you need to write more than 2,000 lines of code that is going to encode all the different rules of the English language. Is going to be able to correct the spelling on some words. So you're going to be able to identify the spelling mistakes of words. And as you can see on the left side here, we have all different files that are for the little nuances of the language. But we can actually create a really better performing system using statistical model just with 17 lines of code that you can see on the right side of the screen. So the statistical model is actually using historical data and probabilities in order to create a better performing system for those spell checking. And what we are going to show you today is actually all the technique of NLP that actually use statistical models. More in particular, we're going to go and we are going to see some techniques, which are the latest one of the past 5 years, really, that are going to use a technique called deep learning. So the classical NLP, as you can see on the top of the screen, is going to do a lot of what's called feature extraction, which means actually I'm going to understand what are all the different rules of the language. I'm going to create all those features and rules in order to perform the output, which is classification, translation, topic modeling. Whereas with the deep learning, what we do is basically we are analyzing a huge set of data, and we are encoding in this kind of neural networks which actually is getting a lot of data, a lot of computation, and is creating this kind of huge statistical model. Do you guys see the screen or?
Yes.
Okay, because some people are writing in the chat that they cannot see the screen. So okay, so it seems like you guys all see the screen. Yeah, I can. For the one, I'm sorry you don't see the screen. Maybe I can retry again to share it. Okay. I hope I fix it right now. You guys can all see the screen. Sorry about these inconveniences. Okay, so the deep learning actually is taking a lot of data and computation and is performing these tasks without any kind of expert that is actually encoding those rules. And this is actually the magical thing about deep learning, is that you can, extract knowledge from data. So that's what actually we're going to see today. Okay, so today we're going to talk about one really new technology, because this technology was created in 2013 by Google. It's called word embeddings. So word embeddings is a learned representation of text, where the words have the same with same meaning have like similar representation. So as you can see on the right of the screen, you can see actually each single dot in this graph represents a word. And you can see that words that are like in common topic, actually, they are in these kind of like in these dimensions, they are like close to each other. So how do you create this word to back? It's really interesting, because these representation are created by analyzing the Wikipedia corpus. So basically, we have Wikipedia, the famous encyclopedia. We downloaded Wikipedia, which contains actually 2 billion words as 2014 and 4.4 million pages. So it's a huge amount of text, but it's really high quality text, because it's all like classified by topics, right? Like as a Wikipedia page. So all those pages then are fed into an unsupervised machine learning system that then is creating this representation of, of those words in a multi-dimensional space. So the way it looks, something like that. So usually, like this word-to-vec model is used 200 dimensions, which is actually a lot of different dimensions. The one you're seeing here on the screen, it just uses 7 dimensions, right? So you can see here the word cat, kitten, dog, houses. This cat vector is actually a seven dimensions, and each one of these number actually represent one coordinate in one of these dimensions. And we don't know what is the coordinate, what that means, because we're not doing feature extraction. Basically, the unsupervised machine learning system is extracting some kind of semantic understanding of the word cat based on the statistical reasoning that happened on top of this huge corpus of Wikipedia. And then basically is creating this representation. So we can infer by looking at this parameter 0.6, 0.5, 0.7 minus 0.8, we can infer that this represents some sort of a living being. So because it's really high for like cat and dogs, but is really low for houses. So this means that this parameter is really connected to living beings, and so on and so forth. So you can go and have all these kind of different parameters. And so those different parameters actually will represent all the kind of knowledge of the language. And some of them are really semantic, like being a human, or being like gender or royalty. Some of them are more related to the grammar. So you can identify is a verb, is a plural. And this actually is really cool, because you can use this kind of knowledge that's taken from Wikipedia and then applied in order to create other kind of NLP tasks. For example, here we are doing a dimensionality reduction. Here on the right, you can see this graph. And you can see actually the cat and kitten are really close to each other, which means the meaning of these words are really close. Houses is far away. But in the graph below, you can see the other set of words, which are man, woman, king, and queen. When we do dimensionality reduction, we can see the man and woman as the same distance of king and queen, which actually is really interesting, because the system is a kind of understanding also what are relationship between words. And what you can do with that is really cool, because you can apply that in order to understand, for example, what are the verb tenses. You can have walking and walked as the same distance as swimming and swam. And so we are bringing this kind of language intelligence in our AI system. But we can have also like higher level knowledge that can be extracted by word embeddings. For example, country capital. So you can create a system that you say, okay, Rome stays to Italy as Madrid stays to what? And the system will say Spain, because actually the system understands what is the distance between those words in this multidimensional vector space. The problem of word embeddings is just related to single words, but actually, as you saw in all the different tasks that we want to do with NLP, it's not just about word, but actually can be also related to other kind of things. I can see some question here. Actually, why is woman negative for gender? Melissa asked. Okay, let me see. Okay, so the reason why woman is negative, actually, I think there is a mistake here in the label. It should be written instead of gender, should be masculinity. Okay, and so which means that for men will be really high, for women will be really low. So as I said, actually, this is not feature extraction, which actually we are tagging those, but this actually is, we're trying to understand what are the label for these parameters, right? So I think it is a mistake because it should be written masculinity, and then we can have actually, queen is really far away because it is a woman. Okay, so those words actually are really linked to, word embeddings are really linked to words. But actually, the limit of word embedding is that they don't understand context, right? So I would like to introduce to you another tool that actually is built on top of word embeddings, and it's called language modeling. And language modeling lately has been a lot of evolution in this tool. And what is actually doing language modeling is actually use various statistical and probabilistic techniques to determine the probability of a given sequence of words occurring in a sentence. So what it's doing actually is trying to understand what will be the next word in a sentence. For example, if you see here on the top right, can you please come? And then actually the system is trying to understand what will be the next word based on this like statistical knowledge that they acquire from this huge corpora. So the word predicted with the highest accuracy will be here. Because it's looking at all these other like sentences that we saw when actually the model was trained. These kind of language models are used in many of the tools we use every day. For example, when you're using this text prediction system and when you're chatting, as you can see here, or you can see in Google. So Google is using a lot of this text prediction to tell you, okay, to help you to write a better search or a faster search. So the problem that language models are solving is a context problem, because they're really like looking at the context of all the sentence where those words appear. For example, the vector running has the same word-to-vector representation, both if it's present in this sentence. He's running a company and he's running a marathon. But we know that actually running has different meaning if you're using different contexts. And so language models can provide a contextualized embedding. And so we can really understand based on the context of the sentence, which is actually really, really important to build accurate systems. I would like to go in and talk about one of the most advanced, probably is the most advanced language model. So remember, language models, what they're trying to do is just predict what will be the next word in a sequence, right? The most advanced one is called the GPT-3, which stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformers. Which you guys don't need to understand what are transformers. I mean, we will talk maybe like in the next webinars if you're more interested in this kind of topics. But what you have to understand is that this actually is a huge language model that has been trained in a lot of data. So it's been trained actually in all the internet, and has a lot of parameters, and has been trained with a lot of computation. And is a really new model that has been released actually in beta in July 2020. It's still not available to all the market, but lucky enough, actually at Edugo, we got access to this to this model because we applied as an innovative startup. They gave us access, and so today we are going to demonstrate to you how this model works. And now I'm going to create actually an English language teacher using this model, and we can see a little bit what is the performance. One thing I would like to say about this model is that, as the paper you can see on the right saying, it's like language models are few-shot learners. What it means is that we don't need to do a lot of training of these models, but since they are being trained on top of all the web, basically they have a really general understanding of the human language, and they can be used to different use cases. So for example, I can build a teacher of English, just to giving some few examples, or I can build, like, I don't know, a financial advisor, a chatbot, right? It can be really trained on different kind of topics. But of course, today the topic of our webinar is about language learning, so we're going to show to you some application about language learning. What I'm doing now is I'm changing my screen, so I will jump on a demo so you guys can actually see the model in action. Okay, so I'm sharing again my screen. Okay, so hopefully you can see my other screen. This is actually my web browser. So right now I'm inside this beta.openai.com platform, which actually here I created this little, called like a chatbot that is going to simulate English teacher, okay? So when I say actually language models are few-shot learners, what it means really means that I just need to do some really basic configuration of the system, and then the system is going to be able to simulate, impersonate a real teacher. So what I did here, I will delete this part. What I did here, I just did a really simple, giving some context of what I want the bot to perform, right? So I created, this is a conversation between John, an English teacher from Cambridge, and Giuseppe, a student from Italy. I'm Giuseppe from Italy. That is learning English. Okay, the following is a conversation from taken from an English lesson where John is teaching Giuseppe about the present continuous verb in English. Okay, so the topic of the conversation is about present continuous. So what I do here, I just started giving an example of a conversation, right? So I start with John and say, "Good morning, Giuseppe. Today we're going to learn about the present continuous." Okay, and Giuseppe say, "Great, I'm ready to start." So what I will do now, I will just press submit, and I will make the AI run, and let's see if actually is able to simulate the English lesson. So here you can see John, and now he's like thinking. Okay, so John now said, okay, so we use the present continuous when something is happening now or at this moment. Okay, that's accurate. So imagine this, the system is just a language model. So what it's doing is just basically trying to predict what's the next word. But based on the context that I given to this model, is actually going to predict, is going to teach me some English. And every time you run this model, will be always different, right? So that's an interesting part. It's never repetitive. It's always creating new language, and which is actually really impressive. So me as Giuseppe, I'm the student. So let's reply to the teacher. Say, great. Can you give me an example? Let's see what John will say. Sure. Okay. Thank you, John. Can I say I watch TV? Let's see. No. Okay. So okay, that's a really interesting point. So he's understanding that I'm doing like a mistake in English, right? So he's identifying that. They say like, no, you cannot say I watch TV in the present continuous, which is kind of impressive, right? Like he's also understanding like that I cannot use that based on the context. And I mean, we can go on and play with this model all day, but that's a little bit, I would like to make you understand that those language models can be used in order to create some kind of interaction, really understanding the context of the conversation. So it can be really personalized. Okay, so I can see actually you guys are asking what was the data input. Okay, Eleni, the data input is just this text over here. And so that's actually, I just gave this kind of context to the system. So there is not really like other kind of input. So that's actually the system is really understanding the human language by giving some kind of like what's called a few shot learner. So which means like giving some example, some context, the system is able to actually simulate a human. What he's actually really doing is called what's called like a semantic search. So basically the system is going through all the internet, which is basically the training set, and is able to get this kind of information that comes from the internet. Is okay for lower levels, A1, A2, and about C2 levels? I think yes. So Eleni is not actually is not coming from the internet in the sense that he's searching the internet. It's coming from the internet because the model has been trained from the text coming from all the internet. Okay, so Kasia is asking, can we actually change level? We can definitely do. And the way you do it is actually in this model, which is actually a really simple example, we can actually say that Giuseppe is a student from Italy, and is learning English at, so I can actually go and say to the system that I'm at C2 level. Maybe he will understand also what does it mean C2. Maybe he has an understanding of the common European frame. Yeah. And of course, if you ask like is talk about present continuous is too simple for C2 level. You guys have maybe you guys can tell me what topic you want to teach, and I can put it there. Just give me like a topic of a typical English lesson so we can see. Okay, idiomatic. Okay, idiomatic expressions. Let's see that. Interesting. Okay, so I never actually done it with this complex language, but okay. Okay, so here I will put, let's talk about idiomatic expressions. What I'm going to do now is just restart the system and submit. Let's see what John says. Okay, so I say, oh, it's interesting. Now it's becoming a little more formal because call me Mr. Giuseppe, maybe because I'm a higher level of English. Okay, let's see that. Okay, well, we can say something like, I'm going to put my foot in it, which means to say something that will cause an embarrassment. Okay, that's great. So he actually figured out what is an idiomatic expression, and he actually created an example of it, and then also like explained that. And to put your foot in it, meaning to make a mistake. So I think this is actually a really good example that the system actually a really deep understanding of the English language and the context. Okay, so I think this is enough. I hope you guys like this example. I'm going to go back to the presentation. At the end, actually, I will once I show you all those tools, I would like to have a little debate with you guys, because you guys come from the language education business or industry. So I would like really to get some ideas on how you think those tools can be applied in your job or in what you do every day. Let's go back to the presentation. So let's talk about the application of NLP in language education, right? So I just would like to give you understanding a little bit what we do at Edugo.AI. So Edugo.AI, we develop an architecture that allows us to systematically collect pedagogical data, both from teachers and students, And actually, by using this data we are collecting, we are creating NLP services that can generate automatically pedagogical sound activities, right? So, so you remember that right now we are in this like statistical paradigm. So basically, the way you build these AI NLP systems is using data. And so the collection of high quality data is really important in order to generate the system. I will show you actually like some real examples on how we apply those tools in our system. So the first example is about AI-powered video call system. And the way it works is actually like you can have a conversation like between a teacher and a student. And then actually we are getting the information, what the teacher taught during the class. And then we use this information in order to automatically generate exercises after the class is over. Let me show you actually a real example of a real class, so you guys can have an understanding how the system works. I'm jumping in again in my browser. Okay, so the one you see right now is actually the one of our platforms. So this is actually like a teaching English platform. What you can see here actually is demo of a class. So we have a teacher and student. And what the system actually did is able to extract our content from the conversation and is able to actually select the key sentences and keywords. And then the student can click view exercises. And the system is actually generating pedagogical sound exercises. The teacher can actually, the student can actually go and practice after the class is over, right? Because one of the main problems we have right now is like, okay, you do a Zoom class and then the class is over and then you forget everything. But the student actually is really important to go back and review all this material and do some like, active learning. So to practice all this content that is being taught during the class in an active way. So what the student can do here is basically rewatch a frame of what the teacher actually said during the class.
I went to the cinema yesterday.
So these have been extracted from the conversation between the teacher and the student. The student can also click on words to see what is the definition of the word. So here, for example, this platform is to learn English from Italian. So definition is ieri.
Yesterday.
Yesterday, okay. And then the student can practice pronunciation, for example. I went to the cinema yesterday. And the system is now evaluating my pronunciation, of course, using NLP technique, and then is going to give a feedback about what has been my pronunciation. And this actually is not only for speaking, but you can generate exercises that range in a really big range that you can practice all the different skills. I don't want to go too much deep into showing the platform. This is not the purpose of today's webinar, but yeah, it's just to give you an understanding that NLP tools can actually be used in order to automate the task for teachers, because now teachers, they don't need anymore to create all this material, but the AI can actually like create it automatically, and then can also create better experiences for students. All of this using NLP tools. Another part is also about the content creation part. So our system is able to convert like multimedia content into like pedagogical sound activities. And these also, we do it by using NLP. Just give you an example of that. For example, here we can upload a video or audio. And for example, here I uploaded 2 sentences, just like audio sentences.
Please send an email to the customer as a reminder.
So please send an email to the customer as a reminder. So these actually two sentences have been updated in the system. The system is using NLP actually to extract what are the key words and linking those keywords to like Italian translation. And all this is used by NLP, of course. So we do part of speech tagging, and and then actually we use NLP also to match with the right translation, and then the system is able to generate this sequence of exercises with the right what are called distractors And the exercise can be actually very different, a huge variation of that. And if you want, you can also go and add new exercises. And we created this huge list of exercises that can be used in order to improve the structure of those lessons, right? So the idea is like you can build kind of like a Duolingo style system automatically and really easily by using AI. So you don't need to be a linguist, but you can use you can build this kind of system using AI really fast and really easily. Here also at the end we have systems where, you know, like for example, here the student needs to describe an image, and of course it needs to input all this information to the system. And every time the student is doing this kind of exercises, we're getting all these data inside our system, so we're able to improve these AI systems over and over. Okay, I will go back. I will go back in my slides. Okay, so this is a little bit to demonstrate real application of AI in our systems. One thing is really important to understand what is the future of language learning software, right? So right now, actually, the exercises we show you are basically really structured exercises. What we call actually, here we have on the y-axis, we have structured and unstructured. So we're making this kind of difference. So the exercises we have today are really structured. For example, we have, okay, speaking exercise, you have multiple choice questions, fill in the blank. And, you know, those kind of exercises are the ones that are really traditional and you find in all the different apps or websites. What is really, I believe, the future of language learning software is to go in the unstructured exercises. For example, question and answer, describe a picture. Right now we have those kind of exercises, but the evaluation of those exercises depend on teachers. So it means, okay, if I'm doing like describe a picture exercise, I still need that teacher that is giving me a feedback on what has been my production. What we are building and what we think is going to be the future is by using data, by using those statistical AI models, we're going to move those, you know, unstructured exercise into the automatic side, which means, you know, like we can create, as you saw today, like, for example, like a dialogue bot that is actually creating a dialogue with the student. The student can really be reply in any way possible, in a structured way, and the system is going to be able to give feedback about the production activity. And so we believe that this is the future of language learning software. We are building this future how? By collecting data. That's how we collaborate with many different language schools around the world, by actually collecting pedagogical data, right? So we don't want to collect user data in the sense like private information, but it's more about like the pedagogical side of this information that is actually allowing us to build more and more advanced modules, more and more advanced exercises that at the end will improve the experience both from teachers and students. What is actually like what will come next? This I think is a really thought-provoking image. Is we believe that technology is already there in order to create a simulation of teachers. As you saw today, actually in the GPT-3 example, we are able to simulate what can be like, you know, how a teacher will reply to a student when he's teaching different subjects. And of course, we're able to simulate also what is the face of the teacher. We're also able to simulate what is the voice of the teacher. One thing we believe we'll never be able to simulate is the human interaction. So I believe even though like we're able to create a really advanced AI systems, we'll never be able to replace humans. But I think what we're able to do is to enhance humans. For example, if my teacher is not there because he's sleeping or he's tired or he has another class, I can still have like an avatar that represents my teacher, and I can still have like some really great learning experience for him. So I think that's the future we want to build. Is not a future where teachers are left out of the equation, but actually where we are improving the teacher role or the human interaction of the core language learning. So yeah, I would like to close my presentation by asking to you guys, what is the kind of topics I would like to cover in the next webinars, because we're preparing a lineup of amazing speakers that are really expert in different, NLP, AI related fields. But I would like to ask to you which actually are the topics you would like to cover. The one actually we are seeing right now, I just some ideas. For example, we can talk about speech recognition and speech synthesis, like STT or TTS, like speech to text, text to speech, language translation, conversational interfaces, generation of distractors. Which one you guys are more interested in? I would like to know. I think also we can. I think also we can open up some some discussion in the video and audio discussion. So if you guys would like to do some comments or have some questions right now, you can raise your hand. You can press the button reactions and raise your hand, and then I can you can ask the question and make a comment. Do you guys know how to raise the hand? Just press the button. Okay. Okay. Kasia raising her hand. So please, Kasia, you can unmute and you can ask your question.
Hi. I mean, all of the topics look very interesting. So if you cover that, that would be lovely. My question to the whole presentation is, and I put it in the chat, like, do you have like a video or presentation how the system actually sorry, can you guys hear me? How the system how the system corrects a written text? So let's say students submit their written text, like maximum 80 words, and then the system corrects that. How does this look?
Yeah, so this kind of technology already exists. It's called Grammarly. I mean, so in Grammarly is actually a really good example on how like technology can help to correct the production of students. And I think that's
do you have that on your platform?
Right now we don't have it, and that's actually the reason why we don't have it right now is because we don't have a specific technology that is related to second language learners. Because usually Grammarly, the way it's built is built for supporting like L1s. That means like, okay, if I'm English speaker, that strain of English speakers kind of mistakes are making. What we're doing right now, and that's actually I think is the future, is actually building the data set of teachers giving correction to students, and then we're able to generate this kind of system that is really specific for L2 and really specific for the kind of topics that are usually taught during the classroom. So the answer is that we're building these kind of systems, and that's the reason why we need to collect more specific data to do that. But always not available right now in the platform. So it's still like we build an interface where the teacher can actually give feedback manually. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thanks.
Thank you. Do you guys have any other questions? You can raise your hand and unmute yourself. Okay. Okay, Melissa, please, you can.
Hello.
Hello.
First, thank you so much for the presentation. This is all just really fascinating. So I'm enjoying learning about everything.
Thank you.
And I wanted to ask, to what degree can you kind of customize or modify the output? Like, can you change the teacher's personality and make them make jokes or ask more questions or that kind of thing?
Yeah, actually, this is a really interesting topic because it's like a new technology. The way actually it's going to work is you do what I showed you before in GPT-3 demo. You can do like a few shot learning. So you can also say in the context of the teacher, what is the personality of the teacher? You can say, okay, you know, John is a grumpy teacher, or John is a really happy teacher. You know, like today is in a really good mood. And he looks, also, you can go and really talk about details about the personality of the teacher, and that can be embedded in the way that the teacher would reply. So absolutely yes, and it's part of the, you know, kind of training of like the system. And what is really interesting is that you can just train the AI to behave in a certain way using natural language, which I believe that is a really incredible accomplishment, because usually before you need to do a lot of training in those systems in order to generate this kind of like nuances in the personality. Now it's really easy to change the nuance of the personality of the AI just using natural language, which is open up actually to more and more people to create those kind of AI agents.
Wow, that's amazing. Okay, thanks.
Welcome. Okay, do you guys have other questions? You can raise your hand. Okay, Letizia, please go ahead, unmute yourself and ask. You will need to unmute. Okay. Okay. Okay, so Matthew, you can unmute yourself and ask a question.
Yes, thank you. My question is similar to the one that was just asked. It's regarding the output. If you're creating an activity where it gives some different options for the answer, can that be modified to do something that would be a bit more familiar to the learners, for example, or something that they always kind of confuse?
Yeah, that's a really good point. Using just GPT-3, which is the technology I just showed to you, is actually a little bit closed box, in the sense that they don't actually give you all the model. So you cannot do this kind of like really deep customization of the model. The reason is because what they say is that the model is too dangerous. I don't know if you saw like in the news, like they were talking about this like AI that now can generate, you know, fake news, they can generate articles, can impersonate people. So they believe that the technology is so dangerous that they don't want to open up to developers like us to actually go really deep and change the structure of the system. But what is the good news is that now they are creating a kind of imitation of GPT-3 that are available and are open source. And with the open source system, then you can do what you're just mentioned, which means actually I can fine tune the system in order to reply in certain ways, or to just give like specific kind of you know, answers. And that's actually what we are planning to do at Edugo, is that using those kind of like open source huge language models and then fine tune it to be using specific language tasks. The reason why we are actually collecting pedagogical data in our system is because we are collecting data how to teach specific kind of like topics, or like a grammar, for example, and then we use this kind of data about teaching the specific grammar to fine tune the AI system in order to be able to answer in a more nuanced way and to be really specific on the topic that they want to teach.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome. David, please go ahead and unmute your.
Yeah, thank you very much for the presentation. Really great. So my question is, for content that is less linear than the language, such as critical thinking, how do you ensure quality, and is the system learning over time and changing the answers? Thank you.
Okay, that's a really interesting question, and I believe that that's a little more difficult than language, but still it's something that we are going to be able to do by having more specific data. I just tell you, like, the reason why we started Edugo as a language learning platform is because we believe that language is actually the lower hanging fruit in order to build this kind of system. Because, you know, you're teaching a language and you're using language to teach a language. So it's like everything related to language. But when you want to talk about like other kind of skills, then actually it's becoming a little more complex. And what the complexity is basically in having like specific training data that can be used in order to fine-tune the AI system to be really good in that. So I think the main limitation right now for us in order to build this kind of system is to have a kind of like a really good knowledge representation of those other kind of topics that you mentioned. So we need to have some kind of like structure of those topics. For example, for language is really easy because we have, for example, grammar, we have language functions that are, there is a lot of materials in the textbooks. But if you want to teach critical thinking, it's not something that is so like structured, right? At least I'm not aware of any kind of framework for critical thinking where you're able to really like classify this kind of topics. I don't know, but David, I'm sure you are expert in the topic, so maybe it can be a good collaboration if you are able to collect some kind of data set regarding those kind of like knowledge structure for critical thinking. Maybe we can have some kind of product that we can build in collaboration.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Okay, do you guys have other questions you would like to go over, or any other comment really? Okay, Eleni, please go ahead.
Hi, and thank you again so much for all the pretext and the information. Very, very insightful. I have a question in terms of how can we know what type of NLP is being used by specific, say, software. So for example, how do we know the one that you showed us with from OpenAI, what is being used, whether it's statistical, whether it's GPT, or yeah.
Yeah, it is really difficult. Usually what you need to do is a reverse engineering process. So if you have actually like a product, you want to understand what is being, what's under the hood, usually, or you're really expert in that, you try to do a reverse engineering, but it is really difficult to understand what is being used without knowing what is the technology behind. I will say, maybe you can build an AI that can classify how this kind of a language has been generated. And actually, like one of the main use of AI in the future, I believe, is going to be to recognize if if an article has been written by AI or not. So, all these kind of models that I show you today can be used, for example, to generate articles. And so really soon, we're going to have a lot of articles in the web that is going to be generated not by humans, by AI. And so we can use AI in order to identify if a text is written by AI or not, right? So that's a classification problem. So I guess you can use AI to understand what's under the hood, but still, I'm not sure if you can recognize exactly what has been the AI model. I think you can recognize if it's been written by human or by AI. That is possible today. But if you want to recognize exactly which NLP technique has been used in order to generate the text, for example, I'm not sure about that. But that's a really interesting question. I think it's a really good food for thought.
Okay, and once one approach of NLP is being used, can it be mixed up? So yeah. For example, yep. And can you put like constraints as well? So for example, say using statistical model in order to translate professions, but sometimes they might include discrimination in terms of like historic data that there were not many men nurses, but then you put a constraint in saying that all professions should be both male and female.
Exactly. I actually, I will share with you a paper from OpenAI that just released that is actually addressing this concern about the kind of biases that are embedded into these language models. Because the problem of having these kind of language models is that basically being statistical models, they're actually taking all this text coming from the internet, and basically they are actually embedding this kind of biases, which actually can be really bad if you are using those language models, for example, in education, right? So we have like a teacher that is teaching kids and is biased by some kind of like, racism. There is some racism embedded in the model, then actually that is going to be really dangerous. So OpenAI created a paper that actually is using these kind of unbiased systems in order to remove biases from this model. And actually, is a paper that just released a few weeks ago. I will share with you the paper. I don't have the time now to go and look into it, but if you're interested, I will share with you the paper is talking about that. So there are actually some efforts for removing biases, even though it's a really difficult problem. Adam, please go ahead.
Thanks. Thank you for your presentation. It's been brilliant. On that same topic, really, I was interested about the speech recognition that you did that we didn't see the result for, and what biases are embedded in that, because there's obviously a contrast between using a native speaker model or looking for intelligibility.
Exactly. And thank you for the question. Actually, it's really relevant. For example, the kind of models that we're using usually for the speech recognition are based on like the system is trying to really understand what you're saying, right? And mainly they're trained on L1s, so the native speakers, because the data are mainly generated from native speakers. But the problem when you want to use this kind of like speech recognition models into a language learning setting is that you don't want to recognize you don't want to be accurate in recognizing what the student wants to say, but you want to be in some sense analyzing what has been the mistakes the student has been making. Actually, one of the speakers in the next webinars is going to be the CTO of ELSA. ELSA is actually, I think they are the leaders into speech recognition systems. And they actually, for L2s, like they are really creating a system that is analyzing the speech of L2 students with different accents, and are able to actually give nuanced feedback on what has been like the pronunciation mistakes. We're going to bring him in on the next webinars. I saw many of you actually want to talk about speech recognition. So I think that will be a great opportunity to go deeper into the topic, which is much better suited to talk about the topic. What I can say is that we need to build systems that are really specific for L2s. And the system that Google or Microsoft are giving are not suited for that. Great. Do you guys have any other question or comments you would like to do? For example, do you see any kind of application of this technology in your job? Do you have any kind of concerns, or you're excited? What is your feeling about that? Let me know also with the reactions down there. Do you feel excited? Do you feel a little concerned? Adam is excited. Great. Melissa is also excited. Okay, great. Matthew, I'm also really excited. Okay, I can see a lot of excitement. I think that is great. I think actually we need to have a better understanding of those tools. Most of the time there is a lot of concerns about AI like is going to destroy the world. I think actually AI can help us a lot in order to improve our jobs, in order to make it more effective. I don't believe that AI can replace the job of a teacher. I think AI can make the life of teachers much better, much more impactful. And but we need to have more education in this field. And I think that's the reason why we decided to do this webinar, is actually to talk about this kind of intersection, which is NLP and language education, because there are always like a lot of people talking about two technical things. There are a lot of people talking about education, but really the conversation should be like, at the crossroad of these two industries in order to understand really what are the possibilities and opportunities. So that's the reason why we want to do this. And I'm really happy you guys join us in this conversation. Really, we are looking forward for the other sessions. And we would like also to share with you the recording of this session together with some exercises. Because at the end of these 5 webinars, there are going to be a certificate we're going to release. We're going to use the Edugo platform in order to give you also some exercises so you can practice a little bit the topics we covered today and to make you actually the knowledge we acquired today stick. So if you guys have any other question, please ask now. Otherwise, we'll look forward to see you in the next edition, in the second episode. Okay. We have one question. David, go ahead.
After the technology, I'm thinking about in terms of business, right? So the client perception of a language AI tool, a service, is it perceived as a premium or rather as a discounted or cheap service from your experience or maybe other people online as well?
That's a great question. I think the AI can be used in 2 ways. One way can be actually to enhance humans. And I think in that way can be perceived as a premium because you have a teacher, plus you have AI that is helping the teacher to deliver a better service. But whereas actually you just have an interaction with technology, according to my experience, people actually expect to pay less. For example, if a student subscribes for Duolingo, right? They are expecting to be free because it's just software. Usually people are more, at least the perception of quality is more linked to having like a real human on the other side, because I think there is this bias where they say, okay, the other person is actually needs to be online and to teach me, so I need to pay this person to do the job, right? So I think there is still this kind of like a really human-to-human perception of value. This might change in the future. I believe that as this technology evolve and also as this technology become more human-like, as I show you today, like creating avatars, might be some change in perception because we humans, I believe, we have this kind of bias on seeing like humans in all the everything, right? You just need to draw like two circles and one half circle, you see a face, smiling face. So I think actually this kind of bias towards humans, of seeing humans everywhere, something that might bring these kind of tools once they have a more like conversational interface, a more human-like face to create more perceived value. But I'm not sure. These are really early stage. I'm really interested to see what will be the evolution of the human behavior and the consumer behavior over time. I think actually the COVID-19 really changed a lot the perception of people about online learning and about learning using a screen and a computer. So I think that actually can help also a lot to make those kind of online tools more perceived valuable, right? So still many people they don't want to pay for online teaching, even though there is a real human on the other side. They still want to go to a physical classroom, right? But this is actually changing. So yeah, I'm really interested to see what is going to be the evolution. But thank you so much. These are really interesting observations. Okay. So guys, if there are no more questions, I will like to thank you so much for staying with us till the end. It's been really interesting. All your questions, all the interaction has been really, really insightful and interesting. And so I wish you a great weekend. And thank you so much for being with us. Bye. Have a nice day.